What's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to make a video drawing in my sketchbook, my small sketchbook. Today I'm kind of thinking of like a knight. I think that could be really cool. So yeah, we'll try to do that. This is basically what I got in this sketchbook. Probably one of my favorite ones that I've had so far because this one I really kind of tried to make some cool stuff. And so yeah, I'm gonna be adding a page today and see how that goes. I have these kind of marker pens that I like to use sometimes. They're really nice and have all these different colors. And sometimes I like to just kind of go in with these and use really interesting outline colors for the characters. But first I'm going to use some pencil. I like to make this sketchbook look pretty finished. It's not like a sketchbook, it's really like an art book, I guess you could say. But yeah, let's do it. Okay, there's my night guy, and I kind of want him to be in the woods, so I'm gonna just try to draw that. I'm gonna draw trees in kind of my style. I like to start my trees with just simple lines, and I do the biggest trees first usually. Kind of build my way through the back, I guess you could say. I don't really think too much about where they're supposed to be. I just kind of try to figure out what feels right. I'm not really too worried about things being right because there's no real way to tell what is actually right. You just kind of have to figure out that for yourself. I feel like there's like a lot of ways to do things right in art. There's so many ways that I could draw these trees right, so to speak, but everybody has their own style, you know? My style is kind of my own version of what I think is right. I think it's a pretty good enough pencil drawing right there. I'm pretty happy with it. Looks mysterious and kind of interesting. And so I have a couple colors here for these pens, and I'm kind of trying to decide. I kind of want this like pinkish kind of red color, but I have so many options here for what I think like I could choose. I'm thinking this like kind of hot pink kind of color here would be cool. We're just gonna have to go for it and see what happens. I usually like to just start with the outline, but before I do all that, I have to do a little bit of erasing, kind of a light erase, because I feel like it kind of melts into the pen sometimes whenever I'm drawing. If I don't erase a little bit, the darker parts kind of get like wet, I guess you could say, and kind of gets onto my pen, and then I'm seeing smudges of graphite, you know, which I do not like. I think it makes it look pretty weird. All right, that's pretty good right there. I'm gonna start doing some line work here. One thing I've learned to accept that even my line work can't be perfect. Like nothing can be perfect, but you have to accept the mistakes and kind of learn to use them and work with them. Because sometimes you can cover mistakes in kind of interesting ways that I think work really well. Like sometimes it's texture, sometimes it's filling out an area. Usually mistakes aren't as bad as you picture that they are in your mind, when really they're just sort of like details of your picture that might be actually doing a good thing for your art that you're making. Especially if you make like a little mistake and you decide to give up on the artwork you're making, that's not the way to go. Little mistakes are not the end of an artwork piece. I think that you'd be surprised, some of your favorite artists, if you look closely or if you knew their perspective of what was going on in their head when they made their piece, they'd probably tell you like, oh, I wish I didn't do this, I wish this wasn't like this, there's a mistake right here. And you know, if they did that, you'd probably be like, oh wow, it's kind of crazy that I didn't notice that. Because I think mistakes are kind of present in almost every piece of art that you see. Those mistakes, you know, good artists learn to use those mistakes to their advantage, I guess you could say. Good artists realize that mistakes aren't the end of the artwork. There's always potential for that artwork to be kind of brought back to life if it's bad or whatever. It's a little harder to do that with pen. That's why I think you just have to accept the mistakes and see if you can continue to bring the life into the work even with the mistakes. You know, sometimes things will be messed up to a point where you just can't like it, but I guarantee that that's rarely the case most of the time. Most of the time, a mistake is not that bad. It really isn't. And you can find a way around it to continue to make the artwork, because if you finish the artwork, you'll feel a lot more successful, even if it's not exactly how you want it to be, than if you just stopped. Like, when you just stop, I feel like it leaves you in a bad headspace for the artwork, like you failed it when you didn't fail anything. And I think that this is just a good way to accept your mistakes and keep moving forward. If you keep saying, oh, I failed this one, oh, I failed this one over and over again, you're never gonna get better and have anything to show, I guess you could say, to yourself. I feel like that can be discouraging to an artist whenever they think that they failed so many times because they stopped working on artwork, when you never really let it get to the end. That's why you gotta let it continue to grow and develop as you make the artwork. I think it's good to call some of your art like sketchbook art, because even though I'm really trying to make this thing as perfect as I can, so to speak, I guess I'd say, it still gives me a good feeling to say like, hey, this is a sketchbook. Because if I didn't call this a sketchbook and I was working on this artwork, like on a big sheet of paper, I would feel a lot like less comfortable, I guess I'd say, making this, you know, drawing, because I'm thinking, oh, it's gotta be perfect. I gotta make sure everything's exactly how I want it to be. But when I call it a sketchbook like this, I feel like it makes it a lot easier for me to just kind of go for it, enjoy the art process that I'm having right now, and not think too much about things. You should totally have a sketchbook that, you know, you take seriously, that is more like an art book, but call it a sketchbook and don't be afraid to mess things up. Like I have pages in here that, like I'll show you right now. I have pages in here that's like just that, or like, you know, signatures, you know, like just random stuff. And I think that it's still cool, but I'm not so strict on how perfect this sketchbook has to be. I like to have really cool stuff in this sketchbook, but I'm not strict on anything. And so if I really make a messed up piece of artwork that I somehow feel like I can't fix, I won't be upset about that. I'll just say, okay, I kind of failed this one, and that won't bother me because I still consider this a sketchbook. It sounds kind of stupid, but this is kind of the way I think about things to make me relax a little more, because every time I'm working on like a full piece of artwork and I have to I'm like, oh man, things have to be exactly how they need to be, I just start getting in my head about what needs to be perfect and how my mistakes might ruin the artwork, when that's not true at all. So yeah, I don't know if that would help y'all, but it sure helps me. It helps me a lot to think that way. Like right now, I just drew 5 fingers without the thumb. It's not that big of a deal though, because you can always kind of take your mistakes and make them work in some kind of way. That's what I'm gonna try to do now. I'll show you that it's not the end of the world, but I just drew 6 fingers. It's always hands. I always have like trouble with hands. Something about them, they mess me up in my mind. I wish they didn't though, because they're so cool. They're tough to draw. So as you can see, I kind of mashed it back together, turning those fingers back into 4 fingers. Which, you see it, like, when you go about the art this way, I feel like you don't get bothered by mistakes like that, which is nice, because, you know, if I got bothered by the mistake and decided to just, oh, I ruined it, it's over, I can't even fix it, then that would have sucked. I would never finish this artwork, and it would just be this like incomplete drawing that never ever got finished, which sucks. That really does suck. The less I can let that happen, the better, I think. The less I have a bunch of incomplete nonsense, the better. The more happy I am with the stuff that I'm creating, I think. Like one of the mistakes I do a lot is I draw things before I should. So like this arm, I kind of drew it before I even drew the armor. But I've sort of kind of made it one of my like styles that I do a lot. In a lot of my art, like the trees in the background, I used to accidentally draw the pen work for these lines right here that are in between the branches. And I've literally started just doing that on purpose now. This mistake that I experienced doing, I actually ended up kind of liking the way it looks a lot, which is really funny. I don't know how that happens, but some mistakes that you make end up being moments where you find another piece of your style. And I don't know, in my experience, some mistakes I've made have been the key to discovering a piece of my style. And so that may happen for you too. If it happens to me, it's gotta happen to somebody else. So yeah, I would just take that into thought. You know, some mistakes are bad, but some mistakes might be, you know, a key element you start using in your art, because you know you can refine the mistakes that you make, and kind of take the elements of what the mistake might be, turn them into a piece of your art, which is pretty cool. Because honestly, I feel like all I do is make mistakes. You know, I've learned to try to accept them a little bit, I guess you could say. The one thing I really hope people get out of my videos, at least, is that mistakes are the key to your success. I don't know, I've gotten a lot of comments recently of people saying like, you know, they're stuck on things needing to be perfect, and that they make too many mistakes to try certain things. And I think that you need to have more confidence in yourself than to say those things. You know, the things that you speak out into the world will kind of be the way you think about yourself. And if you think, oh, I make too many mistakes, oh, I can't do this, oh, I could never draw things this way, I'll never try, you know, like doing something like, you know, drawing in pen as my sketches because I make too many mistakes. I think that you're doing yourself a bit of like a disservice, because you totally can. You're just convincing yourself that somehow you're not worthy of being good at these things when you 100%, trillion% are. So yeah, if there's one thing I want people to get out of my videos, is that You know, try different things, believe in yourself to be able to get through the mistakes, to get better, to learn the things that you want to learn. When you have a dream for creating things, if it's something you really want to do, believe in yourself that it's a possibility that you could become good at these things, that you are already good at these things, that you already have your own good, special way of viewing things that people will find value in. You have to kind of believe that that's the case, because it is. The more that you, I guess, tell yourself that that isn't the case, the more I feel like, for me at least, I stop myself from moving forward whenever I think that way. And it's weird, I never realize it. When I'm thinking that way, I never realize that I'm stopping myself from getting better. But I've learned, you know, that is the case. That the more that I limit my belief in my abilities, or like where I can go, the less I accomplish, the less I'm willing to really try to get better at drawing or making music or any craft in my life, anything that requires work and time. The more I limit my beliefs on what is possible, the less that I feel like I get done, the less progress I make. So yeah, to sum that idea up, you know, just believe in yourself. One thing I started doing that I think y'all should try drawing is random objects in your house and trying to change them in an interesting way. I'll give an example. Like, you could take a chair in your room and try to like turn it into a giant robot mech. But I was writing a comment about this recently, where you could just take an item and turn it into something crazy, like something magical, something that doesn't make any sense but is really cool. Like, that chair could end up being, you know, a giant building shaped like a chair, or it could be an alien spaceship that's shaped like a chair. Like, you can take any object around you, if you're out of ideas and you don't know what to draw, turn it into something interesting that kind of makes you laugh or can bring you to a place that you didn't expect to create. And I started doing that because you can only have so many ideas to draw, and I think that taking these simple objects that are around you and turning them into something that's interesting, like an apple. Like, I turned an apple into a robot with like a funny face and some like a cool robot arms and a body. I think that's what I love about art, is how you can make things that don't exist. And I think you should give that a shot, because it's really fun, especially when you're kind of bored out of your mind and you don't have any ideas of what to draw. Just kind of look around you and think, what could this be? Like, one thing that I immediately think of around me is like this is a speaker that I have, and I can already see like a picture of this crazy, I don't know, robot looking speaker dude. It could be pretty cool. And I think that you should do the same. You have to see the world in kind of an artist lens, where you can see the potential of the things around you and how they could be beautiful, or they could be funny, or they could be, you know, interesting. Or like how the light hits certain objects around, how you could really, you know, implement that in your art and make it unique that way. Like, it doesn't have to be such a basic picture. You can really use your creativity to change a really basic object into something cool. So I think that's worth the shot. It's pretty fun. I'd recommend it to every artist to try doing something like that. All right, now I got my pen work done. I'm gonna do a little bit of erasing. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's pretty interesting. It's a little different than what I usually draw. Yeah, I think this is a perfect example of like using the mistakes to your advantage, because there's so many times where I kind of mess things up in this drawing, but you can use that kind of those rough mistakes to make something cool. Don't give up on a piece. I keep saying that in this video over and over again, but don't give up on a drawing you're making, because in the end, it might end up being exactly what you want. I have some colored pencils here, and I don't know, I'm thinking of kind of like blue highlights to contrast the red in some cool way. Just gotta go for it, I think. I think I'm gonna go with this indigo blue pencil to try to kind of create this separation a little bit more. Alright, there there's my sketch. Tried a couple different things this time. The color's a little muddy. I think I should have done the colors a little differently. But yeah, there's my art. If y'all enjoyed this video, it would mean the world if you hit the like button. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope this kind of inspired you a little bit to sketch more often in general and get a nice book like this if you don't already have one. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see y'all later.